Are you listening?
Strolling down the Fulham Road.
Damn.
The Attacking 3 Transfer Talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming you back to the Attacking 3 Transfer Talk podcast. Today's a little bit of different format. We're without our third host, Andy, so it's all in one part today, and you'll be able to listen to this episode through both Yannick on Chelsea and the Attacking 2. So today I'm here with my co-host Jimmy, and we've also got a guest in, CFC Max. You can find him on Twitter. Is it at CFC Max, Max?
It is, yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. Welcome to the podcast, Max. How you doing, mate?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. We've got a lot of things to talk about today with Chelsea, so
yeah,
it's interesting. It's going to be a good talk.
It is, mate. Just before we get into it, we just want to, from all of us at the podcast, want to express our concerns about the striker Emiliano Sala. Obviously, it's a very sad and serious situation. We want to express our hopes that he is okay and he's found and the search is successful for the striker, because he seems like a man in good form with a lot of people concerned about him. So that's just something we wanted to express. But getting into it, I'll start talking about some players and transfers. Starting with my co-host Jimmy. Do you want to talk about the recent news about Paredes and Paris? Just to get straight into it, mate.
I honestly would like not to, because I'm really gutted about that. As you will have seen, I wrote a scouting report for the Chelsea Echo the other week where I was, I was ecstatic about him joining. He's a fantastic, phenomenal player who's very, very talented, and I do believe he'd fit into the system very, very well. And reportedly, according to Matt Law, if I'm not mistaken, we already had a deal in place with Zenit St. Petersburg, but then we pulled out even before PSG came into play. So that's weird. I don't know where that sudden change of heart came regarding midfielders after Sarri said in nearly all press conferences since Fabregas left, or even before they even left, we need a replacement. And he would be, and he wouldn't only be a replacement for Fabregas, but he'd bring so many more things to the table. But yeah, we saw the social media post of his wife. She's in Paris and doing hard, so it does seem as if this is like a new chapter for them, which has started. Can't blame her. Who wants to live in, with all no disrespect to Russia, but between Paris and St. Petersburg, I think as an Argentinian you'd rather live in Central Europe. So as I said, no disrespect to Russia, but from a footballing perspective as well, of course, because you'll get paid much, much more, you'd expect, and he can play in the Champions League.
Absolutely.
I think it's a bit strange, sorry about that, but didn't he want to join Chelsea? He liked that tweet saying, I wanted to, welcome to Chelsea.
Yeah.
I thought he wanted to push the Chelsea move, so it's a really strange one, that.
I do believe that.
Yeah, sorry. So, just to bring you in, Max, that is a strange one. It did look like that, but, we footballers are like these days. They'll just, for jokes and banter, they'll try and wind up the sort of press and, this, that, and the other, liking stuff. How do you feel about this sort of change of heart, potentially, from Paredes? Do you think it's weird with PSG? I mean, I guess he'll be a replacement for Rabiot, who looks like he's off to Barcelona, maybe. How do you feel about the whole sort of Paredes situation, Max?
Well, I'm disappointed. He's a great player. I've watched games of him in the past and highlights here and there, and he looked like he would have been perfect for our situation in midfield. I can see, as you said, Rabiot's mostly moving. I know Barcelona's just signed that De Jong, so he won't be going there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
I guess Rabiot's could be going somewhere now, but it's really gutting situation. I don't really know. With a transfer since the last couple of years, I think our transfers have been getting poorer and poorer, and the players we want we don't get, and we ended up with, players second fiddle to other clubs. So it's a bit weird now.
Interesting point you made there, and a tangent that we can jump on about the Chelsea transfers getting poorer and poorer. So I'll put a question to Jimmy. In hindsight, if you excuse my French, we've made some shit transfers. But initially, the club won't have seen a lot of these transfers as poor, and I'll just reel off a few reasons. Drinkwater is someone Conte wanted, and he identified Kante and Drinkwater early doors when he came to England, so there was a sort of reason why we got him in the second season before the Conte fallout. Bakayoko was a highly rated midfielder for Monaco. A lot of people wanted him. I was really excited when we got him. Incidentally, he's like winning man of the matches for Milan now, which is interesting. And
I'd like to see him get another chance. To be fair.
Yeah. Well, we can go into that in a second. But Barkley was a very smart purchase in terms of turnover and immediate value once he signed a contract. And even Morata, a lot of people saw. We've sort of chatted at length on this podcast about how Morata demonstrated ability at Juve and Real Madrid. They didn't look like dumb signings, really. But you're right to say in hindsight they've looked pretty poor. So. We can get into this with Higuain. Doesn't necessarily look overly exciting, but maybe that will be the flip of it. But ask you, Jimmy. I want to talk about the midfielders still, actually, while we're on this. Do you think you quite rightly spoke about Sarri echoing his sentiments over and over about wanting a replacement for Fabregas? Do you see that happening in this window now?
Okay, now before I answer that, just to add something you said before, why that Paredes now chose Paris Saint-Germain. I don't think he did choose them over Chelsea. I think he would have still preferred Chelsea, but we pulled out of the race for him because Zenit kind of put up a 50 million price tag or something like that.
Sure.
So he didn't really have a choice. But coming to your question, I honestly think we were intending to do so, but after this whole striker conundrum and Sarri, getting his way with Higuain, I think the club said, well, we're really breaking our policy with 30 plus players and paying a lot for a 31-year-old. We can debate about whether that's a good signing or not now that it's more or less official. But I think they said, well, he's gotten that, so you don't need a midfielder because we've got enough midfielders. Because we do have a lot of midfielders, just not in the mould of Regista, and that's the thing. I think they just see quantitative. Oh, we've got a lot of midfielders, but our hierarchy don't realise that you have to be a specific mould of midfield in order to fill the boots or have the credentials to play Regista, which is seriously underrated job
of course
in football at the moment. So the thing is, I don't think so. I know we can mould players into that. Kovacic may be able to fill in there. Ampadu could be moulded into one over time. I don't think Lewis is a viable option there for many reasons, and otherwise we don't really have one. So either Jorginho plays 70 to 80% of the games up until the end of the season, or the Chelsea board does suddenly, pull our grab out of the hat. But I don't think we will get one. I think with Higuain, that's it. Moses is going. We'll have a few outs, but that's it.
Okay, well, let me bring Max in here. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the board will say to Sarri, look, we've got your boy that you adore so much, and now swallow everything else. But Max, provided as long as Sarri stays at Chelsea, we'll be playing his football, his Serismo. So he said he needs an alternative for Jorginho. I mean, we can all see it when he's knackered or certain games his head's not there. Sarri's even said he wanted to put Cesc on certain games, not as a B team regista, but to offer something different. He's also explained how Kante isn't going to be in that role. So if you look within our current squad, Max, Jimmy's just sort of reeled off a few there. Would you agree with him with maybe Kovacic playing that role, or could you see a player that we've got currently filling in to that regista role that allows Sarri to keep his other midfielders doing what they're currently doing?
Good question, that.
Yeah, it's a difficult question.
First off, I wanted to say that when Sarri brought Jorginho to Chelsea, he thought he'd play exactly like Napoli, but now he's realised the Premier League's so much more intense and you can't play every game as he would have done in Napoli. As you're saying, for the team depth from who could play that position, I don't think anyone in our current team can. I think Kovacic is not. He's not known for his passing ability. He's more of a person who puts hard work in, good dribbling. Yeah. Who else we look at? Kante. He's not known. He's named for his hard work as well and his defensive ability, but then he's not that creative. So looking at it now, we've lost Cesc Fabregas. I can't see anyone to fit into that role.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, like Jimmy said, and I think a few people have said, there's a sort of romantic view of getting Ampadu to play it because we've seen him play a DM for Wales where he does actually play long balls, but doing what Jorginho does is so much. That's more Cesc than Jorginho, really.
It's too early.
Exactly. That's the most prevalent point here. Because as much as we've got high hopes for him, he looks like a leader. He puts a tackle in. He stops fights. He starts fights. He does it all. But to throw him into the most important role in the team is difficult. So it is a worry, lads. I think for that role, because he will need a rest, and what you were saying, Max, as well, it's not just the league difference, it's the expectations. Like, Sarri was excellent with Napoli did excellent football, but he was afforded to throw in the towel in all the other competitions because they were focused on the league, which obviously for Jorginho, he could play once a week and be relatively refreshed in Italy, where Chelsea are like, no mate, you're in for all these cups here, do you know what I mean? So it's going to be stressful for these first teams.
Designed around him, wasn't it? It was when Sarri bought him, he was like, I'm going to build the team around Jorginho. That was his main man. And so when you don't play him, Sarri automatically does his team sheet with Jorginho in. So when he's not fit, or when he's already played once a week or already and he can't play another, you built a team around him, so it's hard not to play him.
Okay. So Jimmy, later on the latter part of this podcast, we're going to go back to transfers and talk about potentially supplementing weaknesses. But while we're on a little bit of a tangent here, let's say we don't get another signing, or certainly not that midfielder that can be the rotational player for Jorginho. There's a lot of talk about flexibility. Now, I've spoken a lot on social about how Sarri won't change, but there was, I think, I don't know if I spoke to you guys a few months ago, when we played Liverpool in the Cup, there was a formation that did sort of resemble a 4-2-3-1, where it was kind of a double pivot with Kante and Cesc. Now, this wasn't his normal Jorginho Serismo. Do you see any of that? if Jorginho really does get knackered and it's just too evident, I know Kante is not going to play that DM in a 4-3-3. We all know that. But do you see, due to personnel, something changing later in the season, Jimmy?
No, I don't think so. Especially as Sarri is more or less stubborn in the regard to only use 14 players, and that wouldn't work in the Premier League if he wants to play a 4-2-3-1, because he'd have to use a few different players. And the thing is, a few days ago, I got sent a passage from an interview Sarri did about him saying, he did use a 4-2-3-1 on several occasions last season. I didn't know that. I thought he's been only using 4-3-3 the entire time, but he does variate between 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1, but only once the team has perfected 4-3-3. Otherwise, it seems not to work, because in that 4-2-3-1, they have to be able to immediately be able to change back to a 4-2-3.
To revert back, yeah.
And the thing is, if you aren't, if it's not really, perfected yet, then that will be very hard, and you could break formation, you could, there'll be holes in your defense, etc. And of course, you won't be able to press as effectively. So the problem is, as long as that isn't the case, as long as we haven't perfected Sarri's basic common approach, we won't see any changes. I'm pretty sure of that, and I don't think that will be this season because he'll need at least until next season to really, see the perfect Sarri ball we want at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, fine.
Talking about that, do you think, for Willing's sake, that we should change the formation and he should not stick by his usual self? Because we're playing people like Willian in every game who's not seeming to do much for the attack and so on with midfield players. For Willing's sake, would you recommend changing the formation and not going the Sarri way?
No.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, no, I agree, but this shouldn't be even a question because we should be playing Callum Hudson-Odoi every game. We should, and then that of course also is has a positive effect on the 4-3-3 formation. Or what do you say, Yannick?
My issue is if we there's so many people that talk about Chelsea as a winning club and talk about the pressures of the club and saying that he needs results now, there needs to be some alternatives or compromise and he can do this later. It's just not going to work. It's going to jeopardise the project. The club took a risk getting Sarri in, and if they wanted to have a different style or a more flexible coach, they could have got Laurent Blanc, or they got Sarri in for a reason, and they've got to be able to roll with the punches. Because if they don't, it's all fruitless, So they need to take the L's where whether that be like a sort of a player power thing or poor performances. Because if he stops and he won't, but let's just say for theoretical sake, he alters and does a bit of this, does a bit of that, and it slows the whole main progress of the transition of Chelsea's footballing philosophy. Then it's just all a bit naff, and you might as well have a flexible coach. Sarri doesn't do that. It is really an all or nothing with Sarri. You
know more than anyone that as soon as he starts getting a few losses, he won't get that chance to redeem himself with his way of football. He'll just get fired. You know how we go through managers like no tomorrow. So maybe with Chelsea Football Club, he can't do that. He's going to have to change, and he's going to have to try different things. Unless if he wants to keep the job at the end of the day. But
yeah, you might be right, Max. But I feel personally that it's all or nothing, because you say if he does change and it doesn't work, and then he can't go back, and then he looks like an idiot, and then he looks like then he looks like he can't do his own football. He can't do his own football. He can't do this is all like hypothetical, because he won't change. He says this is the football I play, and that's the reason why Chelsea signed him. We said, we want that. We don't want anything else. We want that. If it doesn't, we'll give you X amount of time. We'll have realistic expectations, but we want that. This is what we've bought in the shop window. We want that Napoli football here. We don't want anything else. If we wanted anything else, we would have got a trophy-winning manager that would have been gagging to come to Chelsea, because there would have been a few.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Luis
Enrique, Laurent Blanc, they would have snapped. They would have jumped. Yeah. Originally Luis Enrique's wages were too high, but towards the end of our manager hunting, he was gagging to come to Chelsea before we went to Spain, and he lowered his wages demands right down. And he's won all sorts of stuff like the treble with Barcelona, isn't he? So it's not about that. It's about the brand of football and the type of character Sarri is together. But we've
with
got
a goal scorer, it will work. I think the way he plays, we just need goals, and with a goal scorer, hopefully Higuain will solve that, and we'll be in a few weeks' time. We'll be laughing. But
we're being reactive as well. Like there's certain respected journalists abroad, like James Horncastle, Paolo Bandini, and people like Michael Cox have been listening to all these journalists and broadcasters. They've all said Sarri's Napoli is some of, if not the best football they've seen in the last 10-15 years, including Pep Guardiola's Barcelona. Pep sat and invited Sarri to dinner because he considers him an equal in terms of I know it sounds like a really egotistical thing, but
no, you're right.
You're right. All these people they and for us to just suddenly give in and be like, no, let's play a 4-2-3-1 with Kante and throw in the towel. It's just weak and it's wet. We could finish 7th and continue with Sarri, and the club would look good ultimately, say in a couple of years' time, with or without Sarri, if we're playing attacking football, that he set down that marker, the club set down the marker. Roman tried it before with AVB, didn't work, but now they're gonna go all in, So, all right. So before we move on to a different subject, guys, I want to ask you both: just to finish on this Regista issue, are we only? I'll ask Max first, and then you, Jimmy. You can sort of give me an answer, and then you can expand on it if you choose to. But we're starting with you, Max. Do you think we're going to have any other Regista playing player this season other than Jorginho?
I don't think we're signing anyone. I think if we was going to, it would have been done by now, because with these deals, you kind of have to get them done by this stage.
So internally, then, in the squad already.
I think I don't know who would play that role.
It's such a difficult one, isn't it?
I think it will be Jorginho till he gets injured, and then if that happens, it would have. I think he may move Kante further back, because I just can't see anyone else playing there.
Imagine the headlines. All right, Jimmy.
I'll just give this to you too. Simon Phillips started a poll about 3 hours ago, and he's already got nearly 7,000 votes on it regarding exactly your question. Who takes up this role if we don't sign anyone? And 60% of 7,000 people, there could be some trolls from other clubs as well, but let's give it the benefit of the doubt, this poll. 60% say Ampadu, 25% say Kovacic, 14% say Luis, and 1% say Christensen. I think Christensen was always going to be a long shot, but still,
Yeah.
So Ampadu, 60%. I do not think that Ampadu is ready for that role. He is ready for everything, but people underestimate that Regista position so much. Jorginho is a fantastic player, but he's playing poorly at the moment because it's a lot to do, and it's a new league, of course, and people are figuring out, and he needs his teammates to help him out.
To occupy the right space.
I'm telling you that Ampadu will have just as much a hard time, because he's not, well versed, or he hasn't been in training a lot for this one-touch football. He's 18 years old.
I don't think Sarri sees him as a resistor anyway. I think he sees him as a centre back.
He has, no, definitely. But I think the club, all in all, has seen him as a centre back since he started. Maurizio Sarri did say a few weeks ago in an interview with the official Chelsea website, he can see Ampadu fitting that role in the future, it needs a lot of work. So that it isn't impossible, but it would have been fantastic if Fabregas would have stayed, and he would have gradually let Ampadu, fill that role maybe for the last 15 minutes in training or in cup games, and he would have gradually molded him into exactly that, and we wouldn't have any problems, even if Kovacic wouldn't have joined us or doesn't join us at the end. So I think that's too premature. My choice would be Kovacic. I know he hasn't been too good.
He doesn't play 90 minutes, does he? He hasn't played 90 minutes yet, so.
Well, no, but that's for different reasons, because I think Sarri more or less trusts Barkley a lot for whatever reasons.
Maybe
but
it's less knackering as well, the Regista, because he moves less.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think changing those two makes sense. They both complement each other quite well from a substitution point of view. But if you want to back up Regista, then it's got to be Kovacic, in my opinion, because he can do that one-touch football passing.
That's very true.
He can think. He's got very quick in his decision making, and he's got quick feet, and he can actually hold off a ball. Not that Ampadu can't hold off a ball, but if you're getting pressed for such a long time, Kovacic can, he's pretty press resistant.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
And Ampadu is fantastic in so many things, but I don't think that role yet would be good for him. I think that would throw him back, actually.
I think we're all development. I was going to say, I think we're all in agreement here. Just to finish off, I think you spoke some really good points about Kovacic there. He is press resistant, and we have seen him do one-touch layoffs. My only concern is for one reason or another, he has been a rotational midfielder, and to suddenly put him into, again, that responsibility, obviously it won't be as heavy for as it would for Ampadu, but I have some concerns with Ampadu. we'd all like to see him there eventually, and none of us would say he hasn't got the ability, because he could be a leader and he has got the skill set. And at Stamford Bridge this season, I've seen him play centre back. I've seen him play in the midfield, but not as the regista. And he came on as wing back one game in the Europa League. So
fullback, yeah.
yeah, fullback. Excuse me. Yeah, so he has been all over the gaff, and Sarri's obviously going to keep an eye on him and say, how's he doing there? How's he doing there? So he's right to have it in his mind.
Yannick,
so, go on.
But think of it like this, because you mentioned Kovac hasn't been playing much. Why has that been the case mostly in recent history? Because Ruben Loftus-Cheek's been coming into the team, and was actually genuinely changing Sarri's mind that he is actually the first choice that should be gradually. And then, of course, that injury setback was heartbreaking. But I think
really
that was actually
We're really missing him. Like he's a goal scorer.
Mate.
He's mostly
we need someone
person to get us goals. So
exactly, not only the goal scoring, we need someone to carry the ball,
drive the ball into the final third in positions where the wide forwards aren't doing. He'll literally go between the lines and stuff and literally tank it through where other players won't go.
If Jorginho did get injured, I'd be really more down then, and then just stop the resistor and just play a defensive midfielder, and then just put Kante there, and then put maybe Loftus-Cheek and Kovacic, because I just think if we're looking for another resistor, no other player will be ready. So I think you have to change that just to a defensive midfielder and allow your other two centre mids to.
The whole system goes to shit though.
Yeah, well, we're assuming that. We're assuming that, but he might have something up his sleeve. Sorry,
it's not assuming here. Think of it.
No,
we need that regista because he helps play out from the back. He has to be that constant.
Sorry, no. You got no. I didn't mean that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. No, what I'm saying is what we're assuming is Sarri doesn't have a thing in the back of his mind that I've actually been doing a little bit of training with like you say Kovacic here, or a little bit of training with Luiz there, whether we like it or not. He might have something in the back of his head that he's tried a little bit in training. So like you say, he might continue that style, but it may not go to shit as we think it will, because he might have some sort of backup. I just want to move on, chaps, because we've sort of done the regista to death. I want to come back to Max. Okay, so let's go back to sort of hypothetical in an ideal world. Let's forget about the regista issue for a minute, because I think we'd all agree a purchase for there would be great. Looking at Sarri's team, Max, if you, other than that sort of midfielder role, and assuming Higuain's completely signed and done, if you could have one signing in this January window for Sarri's football to come into the first team in the first 11 immediately, what would you choose? Like, you don't have to name a player, but name a position.
It would be attacking winger, someone a goal scorer winger. Let me rephrase myself, because I know we've got Pulisic coming. I know we're talking about Callum, and I don't even think he wants to stay anymore because he's refusing to sign a contract, as the media's reporting. But we signed Pulisic, who's going to come next year, and it looks like he's not a goal scorer, as we know so far. He may change coming. He's got the next half season still to come. We've still got Willian and Pedro, and Pedro's a great player, don't get me wrong, but he's slowly on the decline. He's getting less goals, and Willian, we know, just doesn't get goals anymore. So we're stuck with Hazard, and now we've got Higuain. And then we've got one more spot. I think for this January transfer, to finish the season, I think we just need goals. That's the main. When I'm watching Chelsea, I think everything else is like we are okay. Midfield, we are okay. Defense is a bit rocky, but we've got the players to play there.
I tell you what, just to put a pin in that, Max.
Another goal scorer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to put a pin in that before I bring Jimmy in, before that Arsenal game, we had the same defensive record as Man City. So I think, I don't know, I think we've been considering it's a new system and an attacking system, a possession system. I think we're doing quite well for defence, but I'd disagree with you.
A lot of goals, don't we?
Yeah, I'd disagree with you on the winger, because I feel like we do need a winger, but not for this January transfer, because we still have Willian, Pedro, Hazard,
But then
Hudson-
maybe we should sell one, and then
Yeah,
I know,
that's
I know,
fine.
I'm a massive preacher for Hudson to play,
Yeah,
and
of course.
I think if we sign another player, another winger, it's going to be hard. But we just need to finish the season strong. We need more goals.
But that's
and
what Higuain will do.
He may fail. We don't know that.
Yeah, but I mean,
you know,
that's but any signing may fail. Any winger may fail. Higuain is someone who actually knows the system, and throughout his career.
It's hard to put your whole hope into one.
No, of
side.
course, but it's not just that, is it? It's putting him there so Hazard can go back in the left where he scores his goals as well. It's and creating balance and sort of into the team. If there's one thing Higuain's proven, it's consistent goals. Maybe not in cup finals.
Higuain comes in, he gets injured then next week, and we're stuck in.
Sure, but what happens if your
You're
your winger might come in and fail and get injured next week? Do you know what I mean? So,
and at least we've got Higuain, so it's like a backup attacking player. We've not got Batshuayi.
Okay. No, I get what you're saying. Okay, but before I bring Jimmy in, I want to see if he agrees
Maybe
with.
an attacking midfielder. Maybe it's someone attacking player. That's
You just want goals, Max, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's what we need, because I think Emerson will replace Alonso. I think he's definitely good enough. But our centre backs are fine. David Luiz, I don't trust him defensively, but we've got Christensen, and he's still a very good player. David Luiz.
I mean, we'd all
Right
want.
back.
We don't want we don't want Nabil Fekir to come in this Jan.
Yeah, he'd be perfect.
He'd be perfect, right?
Oh, god damn you! That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, well,
I was
hold on,
already
Jimmy.
thinking of everything what I was going to say. I was going to be really, really smart and say, "Ha,
You
you're
still
all
can.
wrong."
You still can.
He wants to come.
Hold on, boys. Keep your powder dry here. Keep powder dry. So, before I bring in Jimmy, I'd argue I think Pedro and Willian are both on their way out, but they're both going to be. When Hazard's back on the left, I'm happy with them two rotating on the right on a meritocracy and form. Pedro does.
Do the Barcelona deal though. That's
Hold on,
still in my.
Yeah. But let's just put a pin in that for the moment. Pedro can score goals. I feel that the right side is toothless. It's less toothless when Pedro's there. So when Hazard's back on the left, Pedro's starting on the right, and Higuain's at the top.
But he won't. He'll be Willian. You know that he loves Willian.
He also loves Pedro, right? So just wait. And after seeing,
go to Willian.
Hold on, Max, mate. So after, he's seen Willian's better on performing on the left anyway. So, and he's seen Pedro score these recent goals and get these recent chances on the right. Pedro is a goal threat, and he came in and he said all this positive stuff about Pedro. So I'd have the front three of Pedro, Higuain, and Hazard on the left. But it is a toothless right-hand side. I think Azpilicueta is good in big, high-profile games defensively. He's he was. I reeled off the stats when he played against City. He was imperious. It was like an immense world-class performance. But I feel like a right fullback just to give some forward-thinking ability to that right-hand side to Pedro.
You must be left. You've got to be left out of anything.
Well,
we know how.
Because again, speaking theoretically, we've got. I don't want to get into the Alonso debate now, but we've got a good forward-thinking left fullback in Emerson. But Jimmy, I want to bring you in, Jimmy. So we know you're thinking goals, Nabil Fekir. If you could pick one position again, would you? Are you with me on fullback, or do you feel like it's an additional forward?
Well, the thing is, I agree with Max that we need goals. It can't all be loaded on Higuain again, because if you look at City, they have multiple goal outlets. Not only just one player or two players, because we can't just load everything on Hazard. We have seen that. We can't just load everything on Hazard and Higuain. It's to need that goal scoring midfielder like Hamsik was, or you need a right winger who can also score goals from the other side. So the thing is, why I think that Nabil Fekir would be a fantastic signing for us is that he'd plug multiple holes at once.
Utility,
you can play him theoretically as understudy to Higuain. You can play him on the right or on the left wing. You can play him in that left central midfielder role. He can't play Regista. He can't do that as far as I've seen him. But he will guarantee you goals, and he can play everywhere across the attacking band and also in that left central midfielder position. He won't block Callum Hudson-Odoi because he would only be used on the wings if necessary. Otherwise, our left central midfielder, Kovacic and Barkley aren't really scoring goals. Laroum Loftus-Cheek is injury prone, I do believe we should move Barkley on in the summer. Whether we'll get Kovacic we don't know anyway. So that would be the best signing for me, definitely. And regarding the fullbacks, I think that is actually the only transfer that seems as if it could maybe happen. I think it's all agent talk at this point, and negotiating with De Laurentiis. We've already said this often in the podcast. It's tedious. So if Hysaj would come, then without a shadow of a doubt, I would move Azpilicueta. I would move Azpilicueta over to the left side immediately. Why not Emerson? I love Emerson. I've said this before. I always write in my articles I want him to start, but somehow I think just Sarri doesn't want him.
Yeah, I agree.
If that's the case, loan him out or sell him, whatever. But Alonso can't play. So if it's Hysaj and Azpilicueta on the left, he played phenomenally on the left under Mourinho. And the only worry is lopsidedness, but I think we spoke about that in the last podcast. So I'm not sure if he'd fit the mould once, but he can't be slower than Alonso.
Definitely.
And Alonso's one-footed. That Azpilicueta would be one-footed on that side. So who cares? I mean,
okay, just to pick up on that, you're right. How about this for the perfect amount for a compromise from Sarri, keeping his formation, keeping his regista, but the lopsidedness of Sarrismo changing slightly, so giving Hazard that defensive stability a little bit more with, whether it be Kovacic, but having Azpi behind him as a fullback, and not, Alonso moving too slow and defending poorly, and then having Hysaj on the right. So for me, we could balance the attack a lot better with fullbacks, with a more defensively solid fullback. I'm completely with you of putting Azpi over and putting Hysaj on the right. I think Sarri would probably like that, even though he does seem to have a strange hard-on for Alonso, regardless to what happens. But obviously Nabil Fekir.
I just think that's if you're talking about my personal opinion, I think it's a waste of money. We've got Emerson, who hasn't been given a real chance in the Premier League, and team of Juventus are even looking into him. So he's got ability, and he did it for Roma. I think Sarri just needs to give him a chance. If that doesn't work, I'd say go buy someone. But Emerson, Azpilicueta, David Luiz, and Rudiger we should not need to spend money on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I
think we all agree. But like Jimmy was right to say, one reason or another, he's obviously looking at Emerson. And the weird thing is, he's brought Emerson on more lately. I think in the Premier League, he brings him on in the front three, and I think that's for a bit of pragmatism. And it's weird because Alonso's the striker playing at fullback. Let's be honest, all his qualities is like a striker. Yet for some reason he's decided to play a wing back or fullback in his career. He can head the ball, he can poach, he can do a free kick, he can volley the ball. He's got a sweet left foot. Yet for some reason he's playing in a role that absolutely, exposes him at fullback. So it's weird how he plays Emerson in front of him when you'd feel perhaps Emerson should play behind him. So fucking weird. But I want to just go on, Max.
We paid 30 mil for Zabacosta, we don't use at all, and I don't want to use him, by the way, but I mean it was a waste of money. And I think we paid 30 mil for Emerson. I think was right as well.
Yeah, I think we paid less for Zabacosta. I think it was less than 30. But yeah, and he was a utility player for Conte because he can play both sides. But he's naff, he's just not good enough for Chelsea.
The club's going to think about, look, we bought him for millions, we bought him for millions, and then it's hard getting that really good player. I don't mind paying an extra more money, but it's because we keep spending 30 millions on, any old player. It's just a transfer window for us, really.
Okay, well, boys, we've gone over a little bit, so I want to wrap this up. As stated before, this episode will be on both platforms, on Yannick on Chelsea and the Attacking 2 podcast. Before we plug Max's Twitter, Max, is there anything you want to finish up on? Do you think we'll make another signing, and other than Higuain, short and sweet, mate? What do you reckon?
Not just Higuain. That's what I can see so far.
Is Sarri going to be alright with that because he's got his boy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard to tell. We'll see how it goes in the future games with Higuain. But for now, I'd be happy with just Higuain, really. There's nobody else we're linked to that I'd be happy with. So Higuain, done deal, get it done, and then we'll just see how the games go. But yeah, thank
hopefully.
you for having me on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure. Before we plug your Twitter page, Jimmy, and you, mate, are you with Max on that?
No, as said already before, I don't think we will get anyone else, unfortunately. If at all, then his side does seem likely. But before we do plug, you tell us what do you think, Yannick? Do you think we're going to get someone else?
What's this? Let's have a look at the date. It is the 23rd. I think Chelsea will surprise us on deadline day, so I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say we've got 7 days. Whether it's a completely underwhelming load of shit, I reckon we will get another player in. So I'll leave that bombshell to the listeners that I do think we will, but I couldn't tell you what position or what reasoning or why the hell we bought them or if they're any good. So,
Yeah.
Max.
Well.
Max, thanks for joining me and Jimmy today on Transfer Talk, the Attacking Three. You've got a Twitter page that you talk about Chelsea and stuff. Can you just let the listeners know the @ if they want to follow you?
Yeah, that's CFC Max.
Okay.
I post all Chelsea tweets, really. I'm going to get back into more Twitter at the moment. I've stopped been tweeting, but yeah, give me a follow and then hopefully see you on Twitter.
Absolutely. All right, and as I said, me, Jimmy, and Andy will be keeping an eye out on the transfer window. I imagine, due to Andy's absence, we will try and get at least one last collaboration Transfer Talk podcast in to sort of overview the window, unless something else crops up that's exciting. But thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next time.